Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Today, we are going to do a deep dive into AI. I started looking into AI earlier this week because all of a sudden these songs hit the top of the Billboard chart and they were all AI. And I was like, this is not cool. This seems off. I don't think I like this. And then I started to see these actors battling over whether or not they should hire AI actors. And I was like talking to Kyle Olson about it. And I said, I don't really like this. And he had some alternative arguments for that. So I thought, come on the podcast and let's talk about this. But then I got a little deeper into it because I'm like, all right, now I have to really research this. And I found out that there's something even more disturbing about AI. It's like all of a sudden there's this change of narrative from the left, which I find very interesting. You've probably noticed that the left is not really talking about climate change right now. Bill Gates even recently said that climate change will not be the end of civilization. And I was like, wait, what? I thought that climate change was the end. And then I started thinking about it. And I'm like, Greta, who was lecturing us all for years about climate change, she suddenly jumped off the climate change boat and jumped onto the Gaza boat, like literally jumped onto the Gaza boat.
Right. That's right.
How dare you, Greta? Anyway, everybody's off of this climate change narrative, and I think it's because of AI. What do you think?
Well, I think, there's a lot there. First, these songs, I guess the question is, what do you want to talk about songs? Because here's my opinion about it. If it's a song you like if that's your style of music or whatever, because there's this song that it's a country song that was the most downloaded song last week, but it's completely, it's fake.
I know, but I feel like this is taking away, I don't know how it works. It's like some guy creates this fake song. So is then he the artist? Is it not fake? Is he just making up the words and then having AI put a voice and lyrics to it? Because I guess to a certain extent, I guess that's a different type of art. But then what happens when you are a real artist competing against that and you are in this zone where people can use computers and everything to make it sound, you can make it sound perfect. And then
Sure. Well, they've been using, what's it called? Voice.
Oh yeah, I don't like that. Auto-tune.
They've been using that. And then you had Milli Vanilli.
Milli Vanilli. They got busted. Nobody liked
there's that whole
People
thing.
were mad about
but
that.
think about what an outrage that was.
It was totally. Do you remember?
I do.
People were so mad about that, and because they were essentially the original AI to come to me.
That's true, yeah.
About it, because they were fake artists and they were using someone's actual voice. This is that's what freaks me out. It's not even someone's actual voice. It's just this AI voice. So that's what led me into this. But I want to get into this other thing because I think that people don't understand how AI works, because I didn't understand this until I started to look at what does it take to make one of these AI songs? Not because I was planning on doing it, just looking at this. And we have, at the same time, we kind of have this clash of this AI stuff going on, and data centers are coming into states across the country. So you may be in a state that's getting a data center. We are in a state that's getting a data center, or they're trying.
Mm-hmm.
The data center, people in this town that are getting this data center, they're freaked out about it because it's 575 acres. That's a massive amount of space.
And it's farmland. It's
right.
It's a rural community. They don't see 575 acre, plants being built. And so they're saying, we want to keep our community rural. We like living in farmland. We like, farming, and this is how we want our township to be. And so this is really sort of the conflict. And I could see it. These sorts of projects are interesting if it makes sense. And is there a way to reuse industrial land or land that, that's vacant or is.
So you and I differ here. Kyle and I differ on this because he is like a, I guess you want to keep all of the agricultural land natural and never build and never expand into those agricultural lands with manufacturing. And I understand why some of our manufacturers don't want to go to the old manufacturing sites because they do have environmental problems that then the state will hold them accountable for. And I'm not opposed to using some of our land outside of the major manufacturing hubs to build manufacturing centers. If you are going to build, like, for example, when Ford used to come into a town and build a new facility, like they would build a new assembly plant, it would be 10,000 jobs. They would create a community around a manufacturing plant like this. And I think that is the striking difference here. You have, and I don't think they've ever used 575 acres. I don't know that we've seen a facility that large.
That's a lot of property. I guess my.
But let me finish, because I think the stark difference here is that this is maybe 450 jobs. Maybe 450 jobs. But it's not just that it's only 450 jobs. When you have these data centers coming into your town, you have to understand that your energy costs are going to go through the roof. And I will say that I never thought I would say this, I give one of our Democrat Senate candidates credit for calling them out on this. We obviously have a different opinion of this, but I think that he said something that kind of struck you as like, oh, maybe this is the plan, and struck me as well. I want to play what he said right now so that you guys can hear it, and then we'll chat about what that means.
It required DTE to get to 100% renewable energy by 2040. Okay. And you see the consequences of that right here. But there was one loophole. There was one poison pill. That if energy demand got high enough, that they'd be let out of that requirement. And guess what? With the advent of a new data center not too far away from here, there's about to be a spike in demand that is 25% more than the entire energy output that DTE currently does.
So that's pretty shocking.
Well, when I first saw this, I think I had a different takeaway than what he was trying to communicate, because let's take a step back. So what's happening is, well, multiple things. One, I have been around Michigan politics long enough to remember when there was this farmland preservation movement, and we as a state were spending taxpayer dollars to buy the development rights of farmland so it would never be developed, because the concern was urban sprawl, having having houses spread out into farmland. So, and that's what the progressives and the people who wanted to do this sort of central planning wanted to. That was their policy. Now we have these green energy mandates where we stand on the precipice of chewing up hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland, forest land, etc., to put solar panels, to put turbines, to put these data centers, and they suddenly are not concerned about chewing up farmland anymore. But then you add on top of this these sorts of data centers, and I know you've got some stats about sort of the energy use, the water use, but the amount of water and energy that these consume, and of course the problem with putting them in farmland is there's no infrastructure. There isn't sewer, there isn't city water, etc. So where is that water going to come from? Well, it's going to come from the ground.
Right. Well, and if you look at our state, for example, Michigan has some of the highest freshwater concentration in the entire world, not just the country, in the entire world, because we've got the Great Lakes right here. So you can see why this is attractive. But I think what the Senate candidate was saying, which I found interesting, I don't agree with him that I thought it was actually fabulous that he showed how ugly the solar farm is, because he's like, oh, we're getting rid of this. We're going to have to get rid of these solar farms because we're going to have too much space taken up with these data centers, and we won't be able to. And he was saying that the solar farms won't come into existence because, so in Michigan, but I think in many states, lefty governors have said, we're going to have this climate initiative, which was led by people like Bill Gates, who now say, oh, this is not an issue. Interestingly enough, now that they need all of this energy for AI. In Michigan, there was a mandate in place that you have to be 100% renewable energy by 2040. So that's what that guy was pointing at. He's like, oh my gosh, we were supposed to be all solar panels and wind turbines, and now we're not going to be, because in this deal, in this mandate, there was like a clause written in there that if you hit a certain amount of energy that you need for the state, then this is null and void. We will no longer have this mandate. Well, this data center will be a massive amount of energy. I mean, it's shocking to me how much energy it will take. I have some stats that we'll get to, but it will honestly blow your mind when you think that this is, you're taking, so every time you do a chat GPT search or something, even if it's for a banana bread recipe, you are using 10 times the energy that you use for a Google search. And that's something I never even considered, that that's taking energy. Like the minute you type that in, I need this recipe. There are all these things that fire that start to take energy to come up with that. And the energy that it takes even for someone to write an email, or you have all these students writing papers and then changing them, that is all just sucking up water and energy. That to me is stunning. And now you have all these tech bros who initially said they wanted to make sure that we were, all renewable energy. Now we're finding out that one of these data centers is consuming as much electricity as 100,000 households. So you've got one data center in the middle of farmland suddenly needs enough energy for 100,000 households. How do you think that changes a state like the state of Michigan?
Right. And so you've got these local communities saying, one, we don't want this here. And two, what is it going to do to our energy rates?
That's what will be the most shocking in a time when we are already suffering with these high costs. You're going to suddenly, the minute this goes in, it's not just going to be, this is my theory, maybe I'll be wrong, it's not just going to be our energy rates. California has these blackouts. They suffer from blackouts. It's different in California when you are at 70 degrees outside. We already have energy problems in the state of Michigan. I know other states don't, but we as a country do not have an energy grid that can handle these types of data centers. And energy companies will tell you that. Remember, we met with an energy company and they said, oh, the grid has to be, we're trying to invest in the grid. And we think that there are certain states that would be great states to invest in the grid. The grid is not ready for the energy that it takes to power our households as it is. Now we're talking about adding 100,000 households overnight. And
Michigan has, you look at the statistics, and Michigan is amongst the most unreliable states for reliable energy. And so the Senate candidate you're talking about is Abdul El-Sayed, and he came at this from, we need to protect these green energy mandates. But Gretchen Whitmer has to know that the mandates that she put in place, they have to acquire, like I said, hundreds of thousands of acres to put in this renewable energy. And everywhere they go, they are meeting resistance because rural communities don't want this stuff. They don't want their farmland. They don't want their forest land chewed up by putting in solar power plants and wind farms and all of that. So she is not going to be able to hit the mandates, hit the goals that she wants. And so when I watched the Abdul video, I thought to myself, well, maybe this is her way to get out of the mandates, because he's pointing out if there's too much demand, then the mandates are negated.
But
and so maybe this is our way out of it.
We are going into a midterm, and we have not heard the left talk about oil at all. You've got President Trump talking to Saudi Arabia. You've got President Trump saying he's not going to be friendly with Venezuela. I mean, we're going after boats in the ocean. This is the perfect time for the left to go oil, 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 oil. They have not said a word about it. Suddenly, all of these data centers are going in. One other thing that I think they have that is key here, because oil is one form of energy. If you're on the left, then you think that we'll just get energy from anywhere, right? So there are other ways to get energy. They're certainly not just in time energy. It's certainly not efficient, but we are looking at ways of creating energy outside of just drilling, right? So it's not a finite resource. We can get more of it through various different sources. You could argue that that's how the left feels. Water is not that situation. We do have a finite amount of water. There are people in the world, we are trying to get clean water to areas of the world because there is so little water. And instead of sending water to people who need it, which you would think is a leftist talking point, like we've got to have this clean water, we've got to make sure that we have it to the appropriate areas. We are now we're willing to use that water, and this water just evaporates. It's not like you can reuse the water. It's not like you're going to be able to reclaim the water in any way. This water goes through to cool these systems down. It evaporates. A single AI prompt. So that one time that you ask for a recipe or you ask for an email to be written, that is estimated that every time you do that, you use 1 bottle of water. Think about the number of people who are on the chat GPTs of the world every minute of the day. And sometimes you're asking things you don't even need. But that to me is very interesting because there's no regulation of AI. And I am not a fan of regulation. However, we are in this weird conundrum where AI could potentially eliminate a resource that we cannot live without.
Right. And again, so you go back to where they want to put a lot of these data centers in rural areas. Well, what does that mean? They're going to be sucking all of this water out of the ground. And how does that impact the rest of the community? Well, we don't know. But what we're seeing in Michigan in particular, in Saline Township, they don't really care about, not the locals. The local people are opposed, and they've been very vocal about it. But unfortunately, they don't have the power to do anything about it because the state took the power away. And the state has the power to decide whether or not this goes in their community.
That is also interesting because local politics are the most powerful. And that's why we tell people all the time, make sure you locally know what's going on. We had a factory that was going into a local town. You may remember Goshen, owned by the Chinese. Those people fought back against that. It was another factory that was going to use a massive amount of water. This is now a trend because that was in 2022. Now we are seeing that there is no protection for our most valuable natural resource. And again, I will say that the United States has a huge, vast resource in the Great Lakes.
And the state changed the law after the Goshen fight, the main part of the Goshen fight, because they realized that the local communities could organize and fight back against this. And so the people who at the state level who, want to decide about these things and they don't really care what the local community thinks, they're just going to try and do it. And so what's interesting about the Saline Township one, as the Midwesterner reported, is the vice president of the company, the company that wants to build this is called Related Companies. And the company that's technically going to build it is Related Digital. It's owned by Related Companies. But the vice president of the company, his name is Ryan Friedrichs, and his wife is the Secretary of State, who is also running for governor, Jocelyn Benson. And so here he is out. He
seems like a little bit of a conflict.
He was a lobbyist for the company. He's apparently is no longer a lobbyist, but my guess is he's probably doing very similar work. But we posted on X last week a video of him giving a presentation to the Saline City Council about this project. And so, yes, you're right. What sort of conflict of interest does this create when you have the husband of a statewide elected official who wants to be the governor, who would be appointing the Public Service Commission, which actually is going to decide this? But what they're doing is the company and DTE, which is the power company, they are asking the Whitmer administration to just rush this through. We don't need to have hearings. We don't need to have public input. Just rush it through. But this is how they do it. They don't care what the public, what the local community thinks.
But again, I think this goes to a larger issue that who is going to protect our resources? What party is a party? I mean, at a certain point, this is political. You have to come in and say, we're going to protect our resources. One report is predicting that 60% of the growing electricity demands will be met by burning fossil fuels. So what the left says they're totally against. This is going to increase the global carbon emissions by 220 million tons. Wait a minute. Those are numbers that any other time the left would go crazy about. So you have to ask yourself, where are they on this issue? Why is suddenly this not something we're talking about? And it's happening in blue states. So why aren't the environmentalists stepping up? Well, if you don't know why, I can tell you what I think is that people just don't even know. 40%, I think, of people understand that there's going to be a water consumption in these factories. Do they even understand the extent of it? 50% of people understand that there's an increase in energy. Do they understand that that's going to hit their own pocketbook? I don't really think so. As I was researching this to talk about it on the podcast today, the sources that I was finding that are giving this information out, these are not your mainstream media sources. You have to really search to find out exactly how dangerous these factories are. And I say dangerous because they consume so much of our natural resources. Again, water, there's no way to get more water. It's a finite, you're not going to, once you use it all, you can't, it's not replenishing quickly. So you can't just use all of the water at one time. This is a massive amount of water that's going through these factories. We certainly don't want to drain our Great Lakes. And people go, oh, that's it. That's insane. You can't possibly do it. But you can get into a situation where this is bad. And for what? More coming up about data centers. But first, I want to talk to you about your heart health. If you're over 50 and you're worried about your heart health, then you've got to listen to this. It's about nattokinase. It's an ancient Japanese superfood, and it is for you. It can help you reduce your heart attack risk and improve your cardiovascular health. This is something that the Japanese have been using for a long time. They literally have the world's second longest life expectancy. And that's because they use this natural, powerful enzyme they've used for thousands of years. And now you can too with Luma Nutrition, because Luma Nutrition has perfected a powerful nattokinase formula, and it's made right here in the United States. It is third-party tested for purity and quality, and you need to think about it. You got to buy your supplements from a source you can trust, and Luma Nutrition is that source. Luma Nutrition was founded by a former U.S. Army officer, and they are on a mission to provide the highest quality natural supplements. Again, they're made right here in the USA. You can try your nattokinase today for up to 40% off when you visit lumanutrition.com. That's LUMA nutrition.com, lumanutrition.com, veteran owned and proudly made right here in the USA. Now stick around. We'll be right back. Just, I think last week, a woman somewhere in Asia married a chatbot. Married a chatbot that she created through ChatGPT. She married, and I think that's so freaking weird. There's a whole nother, we could talk about this for a long time. There's a whole nother issue here. You have people using it like this. So we're risking our water resources for someone to marry a fake AI husband. This person was in a relationship with an actual human, like a real person. And the real person was like, you know what? I just feel like I cannot get enough time with you because you're always with your chatbot. And then she's like, my chatbot's so much better because you programmed the chatbot. But how is that enough? I mean, you literally just have programmed something to tell you all the things you want to hear. Are we as a society becoming that shallow and that and no longer reliant on actual, like, I don't know, physical touch or children? Or
Is that so the person
she
sitting
has AI children now, I think. I know.
so is she sitting in front of a computer and chatting?
Yeah, no, you wear these goggles. And she sees this. I assume that the person, I don't know, maybe they look real. I guess in my mind they look like a cartoon, but I think
Where
you
do
can
get
look
these
real.
goggles?
Oh my gosh. It's disgusting. I think it's more dangerous than you do, obviously. What about
I don't
this?
understand. I guess I don't understand. I'm trying to understand, like, what's going through someone's mind when they say this is a good idea.
Marriages are breaking up. I mean, that was actually why this was interesting to me. That was the only like mainstream media stuff that I was seeing. Like, teenagers are getting into these chatbot room, or I don't know if I don't even know how it works. I guess you like have your own person, or AI becomes like, I don't know. I did look, and there all of a sudden there's all these apps that come up that you can have your own, like, so I guess you feel like you're talking to a real person. Like, it feels like it's your special person. And you remember the story not too long ago about the teenager who was saying, I don't think my parents love me. And the chatbot convinced him to kill himself. I mean, so there are very weird dangers about this. And you think, like, how is this? We talk about the importance of AI from a national security standpoint, like, oh, we can't let Russia get ahead of us or China get ahead of us. But in the meantime, it seems a little bit out of control that people are marrying chatbots and teenagers are being convinced to commit suicide. I mean, this seems like it's completely out of hand.
Right. And the media's covering that, the national media, whatever. But what about these other issues, the environmental issues, the issues of government overreach and mandating this is going to go in your community? They're not really talking about that.
Right. No, they're not talking about that. I think they're talking about things that are cutesy, like, oh, this woman married her chatbot.
Like tabloid stuff.
Yes, but there's a dark side of that too. These are not, I saw this thing the other day, and I don't know if this is real, and I'll just end it on this because it was so disturbing. But I'm also at the point where I'm like watching, my mom will say, oh, did you see this? I'm like, that wasn't real. That's the other disturbing thing. You never know if anything's real. So I saw this thing, which is probably not real, but it's like a glimpse into maybe what could be the future, where this woman takes a video of her mother. She's like, I just need 3 minutes of your time. She takes a video of her mother, and then she gets pregnant. Mom is dead at this point. Okay, so her mother dies. She has this 3-minute video that turns into a chatbot, and she talks to her dead mother through a device that's like, and the mother is not her mother, obviously, is AI, but she talks back to her. And then the baby, she gets pregnant. Grandma talks to the baby in the belly. Grandma talks to the baby his whole life, right? And then it ends on him with grandma like, my wife is pregnant. And she says the same thing to him that because she's a robot, that she said to the mother when she was pregnant. But I'm like, that seems insane, but that could happen. How messed up is that? It was like, your loved ones don't have to die. They can live on forever. What?
Well, that's a whole nother issue of, you go on Facebook now, and there's so many posts that you go, and it's not posts by your friends. It's posts by these pages that you go, I know that is not true.
I know that cat did not scare that bear away from licking the baby's face. But I've had that sent to me.
I saw one today. It said Bob Dylan, who I'm a fan of, gave $5 million of his tour royalties this year to build homeless shelters in California. I know that's not true, and I don't care. But why?
But why?
Why is that on Facebook? Who is producing that, and why is that not being
So
caught?
that is also, so I also kind of wonder if the news doesn't talk about this stuff because they're using ChatGPT to write things. Because I think yesterday I sent you guys something where in a newspaper, it was actually in the newspaper, they had a whole article, and at the end they forgot to take out the part where the ChatGPT was like, I can also write it this way. You don't read my text messages. So anyway, that's rude. But at the end of
I'm sure it was good though.
But isn't that disturbing?
Well, yeah, obviously. And that's a whole nother thing about the media. The media using AI and not actually having a human being with real sources producing the news.
And I've seen AI be very wrong with some of the things that they're saying, like disturbingly wrong. So then you just have this, and it wasn't even checked. I mean, that to me is the shocking part. They let AI write an article, and then they didn't even read it because they missed the part where AI was like, or we could do it this way. What do you think? It's so disturbing. Yeah. We could talk about AI for a very long time. I have so many more things. We will do more research on this, and we'll bring it back to you because I feel like we need to extend the AI conversation, but not today. So today we will let you go on with your day, but we are so appreciative of you being here. Kyle, thank you for chatting with me about chatbots.
Thanks.
You're not a chatbot. It's so nice. It's a real conversation with a real person. Sometimes I feel like you're a chatbot, though. Chatbot.
I'm just about facts.
Yeah, right. It's not a lot of, not a lot of highs and lows. All right. Anyway, thank you all for joining us on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. For this episode and others, go to TudorDixonPodcast.com. You can subscribe right there, or go to the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, you can always watch it on Rumble or YouTube at Tudor Dixon. But make sure you join us next time, and have a blessed day.